What turns a mother's love into something unimaginable? Today, we're diving into a case that shook the state of Georgia to its core, a story that begins with a missing toddler and ends in a landfill. Welcome to the Real Crime Diary, Daily Dose of Crime. I'm Sean Dupree, and today we're examining the heartbreaking case of 20-month-old Quentin Simon. In October 2022, this innocent child vanished from his playpen, sparking a desperate search that would reveal dark secrets and leave a community forever changed. What could drive a mother to report her own child missing, only to become the prime suspect in his death? The answer to this question will take us through one of the most disturbing cases I've ever covered. On the morning of October 5, 2022, in a quiet neighborhood just outside Savannah, Georgia, 24-year-old Leilani Simon made a frantic call to police. Her 20-month-old son, Quentin, had vanished from his playpen. According to her initial report, she had last seen her toddler around 6 a.m. in their home. The details seemed straightforward at first. A missing child, a concerned mother, and what should have been a routine search and rescue operation. But as investigators began piecing together the events of that morning, things didn't quite add up. Leilani claimed she hadn't left the house that night, that everything had been normal until she discovered her son was missing. But the peaceful suburban neighborhood quickly transformed into a crime scene. Police officers combed through the property, search dogs sniffed for any trace of the toddler, and neighbors gathered in concerned clusters along the street. The community rallied together, hoping for the safe return of this innocent child. Yet with each passing hour, investigators grew increasingly troubled by inconsistencies in Leilani's account. Neighbors and babysitters came forward with their own observations. They spoke of unusual behaviors in the days leading up to Quentin's disappearance. They described tensions in the household, concerning patterns that would later become crucial pieces of this tragic puzzle. As the first day turned into night, the question wasn't just where Quentin was, but what really happened in those early morning hours when he supposedly disappeared from his playpen. As investigators dug deeper into the case, they made a grim announcement on October 12. They believed Quentin was no longer alive. But finding evidence to prove what happened would require one of the most extensive search operations in Chatham County's history. Law enforcement officials zeroed in on the local waste management landfill. What followed was a Herculean effort that would test the resolve of even the most seasoned investigators. For 30 grueling days, teams meticulously sifted through 1.2 million pounds of garbage. Picture that, over 1 million pounds of trash, searched piece by piece, looking for any trace of a tiny toddler. Meanwhile, detectives were building a timeline that contradicted Leilani's version of events. Her cell phone records told a different story from the one she'd given police. The pings from her mobile device showed movement during the hours she claimed to be home. Each piece of digital evidence poked another hole in her carefully constructed narrative. The investigation took an even more dramatic turn when authorities convinced Leilani's ex-boyfriend to wear a wire. In a hotel room conversation that would later prove crucial, Leilani's words and behavior raised red flags. FBI agents noted something particularly disturbing when they began searching the landfill. Leilani showed no shock, no horror at the implication that her baby might be there. It was a reaction, or rather a lack of reaction, that experienced investigators found telling. Then came the breakthrough they'd been desperately hoping wouldn't come. Among the mountains of refuse, searchers found what they'd been looking for: the remains of little Quentin. It was a discovery that would transform a missing persons case into something far more sinister, and set the stage for one of the most heart-wrenching murder trials in recent Georgia history. Over the course of 9 grueling days, the courtroom became the stage for a tragic story to unfold, piece by devastating piece. The prosecution made it clear from the start they weren't going to speculate about how exactly Quentin lost his life. Their goal was simpler, yet more profound: to prove beyond doubt that Leilani Simon was responsible for her son's death. What emerged was a portrait of a troubled mother, caught in a web of drug use and a volatile relationship. The parade of witnesses painted a damning picture. Neighbors, babysitters, even a local drug dealer took the stand. But perhaps the most compelling testimony came from an unexpected source: Leilani's own ex-boyfriend, who had agreed to wear a wire during a hotel room meeting with her. The recordings revealed inconsistencies that would prove crucial. A A witness demolished Leilani's alibi about meeting at a gas station on the night Quentin disappeared. Her cell phone records betrayed her movements, showing activity at times when she claimed to be home with her son. Each piece of evidence was another crack in her story's foundation. Particularly telling was the testimony of an FBI agent who observed Leilani's behavior when the landfill search began. Most parents would be horrified at the mere suggestion their child's remains might be in a garbage dump. But Leilani's reaction, or rather, her lack of one, spoke volumes. She showed no surprise, no outrage, no grief at the implication. The defense tried to create reasonable doubt by pointing to statements from Leilani's former boyfriend, who claimed to have seen Quentin multiple times on the morning of his disappearance. But as Assistant District Attorney Jenny Parker argued in her closing statement, this wasn't a case of tragic accident, this was murder, calculated and deliberate, followed by a desperate attempt to hide the truth beneath tons of garbage. After 2 years of uncertainty, grief, and searching for answers, justice finally arrived in a Chatham County courtroom. The jury delivered their verdict guilty on all 19 charges against Leilani Simon, including the most serious count of malice murder in the death of her 20-month-old son, Quentin. The conviction sends a clear message about the sanctity of a parent's duty to protect their child. But more than that, it represents closure for a community that spent weeks searching through £1.2 million of trash, hoping against hope to find answers about what happened to this innocent toddler. The implications of this verdict reach far beyond the courthouse walls. For law enforcement, it validates the painstaking effort of the landfill search, a massive undertaking that proved crucial in recovering Quentin's remains. For child welfare advocates, it highlights the critical importance of recognizing warning signs in troubled families before tragedy strikes. With Leilani Simon now facing up to life in prison without the possibility of parole, her defense team has already announced plans to file a motion for a new trial. But for now, at least, there's a measure of resolution in a case that has haunted Georgia for 2 years. Perhaps the most profound impact lies in how this case has changed our perception of parental crimes. How could a mother dispose of her own child like common trash? What systems failed to protect Quentin before it was too late? These are questions that will likely trouble us long after the sentencing is complete. This verdict doesn't bring Quentin back. It can't undo the horror of what happened to him. But it does ensure that the person responsible for his death will face the consequences of her actions, and hopefully, it will serve as a deterrent to prevent similar tragedies in the future. As we close this haunting chapter in Georgia's criminal history, we're left with profound questions about the nature of parental love and responsibility. How many Quentins are out there right now, silently suffering? What can we, as a society, do to better protect our most vulnerable citizens? The tragic story of Quentin Simon serves as a stark reminder that evil can hide behind the most sacred of relationships. While justice has been served in this case, we must remain vigilant in our commitment to protecting children who cannot protect themselves. I've been thinking about what makes this case particularly disturbing. Is it the calculated nature of the crime? The betrayal of maternal trust? Or perhaps it's the chilling realization that sometimes the greatest threats to our children come from those who should love them most. If you're as captivated by the complexities of true crime cases as I am, you'll want to explore some of the fascinating books I've curated about similar cases. You'll find links to these carefully selected reads in the description below. They offer deeper insights into the psychology behind parental crimes and the investigative processes that bring perpetrators to justice. What are your thoughts on this case? What warning signs do you think we should all be watching for in our communities? Share your perspectives in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to The Real Crime Diary for more in-depth explorations of cases that challenge our understanding of human nature. Until next time, stay vigilant, stay informed, and remember, sometimes the most important stories are the hardest ones to tell. This is Sean Dupree, signing off with another chapter from The Real Crime Diary.
Hey listeners, welcome back to The Real Crime Diary. I'm your host, Sean Dupree. If you tuned in last time, we had a deep dive into the disturbing history of power abuse across different eras. looking at the connection between dominance, control, and how it plays out even today. We touched on scandals from the past and compared them with some modern-day examples, showing how these patterns of abuse, unfortunately, persist. One of the most insightful tools we've explored to understand this is my book, Power, Pleasure, and Pain, a study of abuse through time. It's not just a historical account, but an interdisciplinary approach to understanding why this keeps happening. We draw from history, philosophy, and modern case studies to explain how figures like Dominique Pellico, Harvey Weinstein, and others have exploited their positions of power for their own gain, often protected by the very systems meant to stop them. Recap of last interaction. In our last live stream, we discussed how libertinism, philosophically introduced by figures like Marquis de Sade, has shaped the way power and pleasure have been entangled throughout history. This concept ties directly into how figures like Weinstein operated, as we saw parallels between de Sade's fictional characters and the way powerful men manipulated their victims in real life. You guys had some amazing comments, asking how societal structures have allowed these behaviors to go unchecked for so long. It's a crucial question, and one that the book addresses deeply. Why this book is valuable. Now, what's powerful about Power, Pleasure, and Pain is its ability to break down these historical patterns and link them to the present. You're not just reading about ancient Rome or Enlightenment philosophy, you're seeing how these ideologies are alive today. The book uncovers how sexual violence and control have been systematically woven into the fabric of societies from ancient times right up to the modern era. It's about understanding not just the individual predators, but the systems that protect them. Whether it's in royal courts, religious institutions, or today's corporate and entertainment worlds. Through these historical lenses, we also explore movements like #MeToo that are beginning to dismantle these structures. The fight for justice is far from over, but as the book demonstrates, we are in the midst of a cultural shift where legal reforms are finally addressing these long-standing issues. It's more than a history lesson. It's a guide to understanding and supporting change today. What's next? If you want to dive deeper, I suggest picking up Power, Pleasure, and Pain, a study of abuse through time. It's available now, and trust me, it will change the way you think about power, pleasure, and control. We've even got some exclusive content coming up on the channel where we'll be exploring the book's case studies in even more detail, so stay tuned for that. And if you haven't yet, make sure you subscribe to The Real Crime Diary so you don't miss any updates. Let's keep this conversation going, because understanding the past is key to changing the future.